Welcome to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. We're so glad you're here.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the Pedal Collaborative podcast. I'm your host Paul, and I'm here with Alan.
Hey everybody, this is going to be such a fun topic because this is like new release week. Everything's coming out apparently.
Yeah, it's the fall. Well, it's officially fall now, so
it is.
I'm excited about that. And with fall, we've got a bunch of new pedals coming out. So we figured we would just sort of do a random episode where we talk through that, just because there's a lot coming out and a lot we're excited to play with, and some we've already got to play with, which is fun.
Yep.
So if you follow our channel, you have probably seen the video that Alan dropped. Was that yesterday or this morning?
It would have been yesterday.
Yesterday, okay. And well, when you hear this, it'll be 2 days ago. But
well, it depends. What are we talking about?
I'm talking about the Mooer.
Okay, so that would have dropped on Monday, September 23rd.
Yes. So
2 days ago.
Yeah. Yes, the Ocean Machine 2. Which, Alan, you want to talk about that one for a bit, and then we can talk about the other one that you thought I was mentioning that dropped tomorrow, but yesterday when this episode comes out. I'm going to confuse everybody right off the bat, too.
Okay. Yes, I will. And I don't think this needs explanation, but for any of you that doesn't compute this, Paul and I record these episodes in advance. Obviously, these are not live streamed. So any sort of preparation, like today's episode, requires us to think in terms of yesterday, tomorrow, because what we're talking about tomorrow is today's yesterday. And I just lost half of the listeners right now. They've just switched off to something else. And maybe they're on to a Jay Shetty podcast. I don't know. That's fine with me. But for those of you who are still with us and are totally confused, unlike the movie yesterday, which is not what we're talking about, also a good one, which we can always get to at some point. We're talking about the Mooer Ocean Machine 2. And Paul, this is the second one that it's a collaboration with Devin Townsend, and it is a dual delay and reverb and looper, all in one, in a single package. It has to be the heaviest box I have.
Really?
It is so heavy. It came in the mail. So, all right. So this is not something. I guess when the original one came out, that was like during my hiatus. It was like 7 years ago. So I had no idea that it was out. I wasn't into pedals at the time. So I was like intentionally blocked off. So when this one kind of got announced, Paul, you sent it to me. And I get thinking, if I'm being honest, initially I was just like, it's a Mooer. I haven't had great experiences. But then also like, I should give it a shot because,
Well, yeah, and my reason of sending you anything is I think it's in our bailiwick of time-based coolness and strangeness.
Yeah.
And I have not played a Mooer pedal in years. I think they have the Shimverb. Is that the one that they have?
They do have a Shimverb.
I had a Shimverb like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so and this is probably why I just totally cut you off, but I think this is why I wasn't when I originally saw anything about the Ocean Machine 2, I was just like, okay, because I had the Shimverb and the Shimverb Pro, and those, but so long ago that I feel like they weren't the highest quality.
No, I remember the one I had, my Shimverb. I had my Shimverb when you were in Mexico. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
And I was really bummed because it actually sounded really cool. It did the shimmer thing honestly, it was like a budgetary option of like the Blue Sky shimmer at the time, like when that was like all the rage. But I ended up having like a cold solder joint on mine.
Mm.
So after it like heated up for a little while, if I had my board turned on, it would start clicking.
Okay.
And I was really bummed because it was like, oh, this sounds cool, but the componentry just like wasn't there at that time as a company. I think they've come a long way since then.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they have as well. So, I mean, those are the reasons why I didn't think about looking at this one, but kind of in the vein of what we're doing, I don't want to just like shy off of something just because of a previous bad experience that was over 10 years ago. And realistically, we already get commented enough on being a bit bougie with our effects. And while I can own some of that and be actually absolutely okay with it, I don't want to do so at the. I just don't want to like shrug off something else just because of a price point or anything else like that. You know what I mean? I'm looking at
I'm
this
always
thing.
I'm always here to tell you, like, we should try this thing. We should try the thing that you're not going to buy normally, because I like to try everything and plug in everything.
Right. Right. So I ordered it, and on the wonderful shop of Amazon, which, as you just mentioned, Paul, like we're not talking about it on this episode, but they're now making their employees come in 5 days a week, apparently.
Yes.
Which had nothing to do with pedals, but I ordered on Amazon because it got shipped direct from China where it's manufactured. And I was expecting it mid-October because that's what the delivery date said. And then lo and behold, over the weekend, I get this long box that's really heavy with nothing, like no indication of what it is. And I look at my partner, I'm like, is this yours? Like, did you buy something? And she says, like, no, is it yours? I'm like, well, it has my name on it, but I have no idea what it is. And I open up, I'm like, oh, it's the Ocean Machine. Again, threw me off because it's wicked heavy. Like it weighs, it probably weighs twice that of an LVX or Mercury X.
I was curious, like, perspective wise, since like the way you shot the video, it's like just, I don't have a perspective for scale. How big is it, like lengthwise?
Okay. So lengthwise, I'm arranging it next to the LVX. It's probably about 2 inches wider than the LVX. I'm going to say it's about the same depth as the LVX, and height-wise, it's probably somewhere in between. It's not angled slight, like it doesn't have that angle that the Maris pedals do. This one's a little bit where the buttons, like the foot switches, are angled very slightly, and then everything else is flat. So
interesting.
But it is heavy. It's heavier than the Stomp.
Oh wow. Okay, they packed this thing full of something.
They packed it full. I don't know what. I mean, it just. Honestly, it's probably just the chassis. It's like, it feels really sturdy. So, anyway, all that said is that it came up, and I'm pretty excited because it is an ambient machine. I'm so excited. I'm stuttering. It is an ambient machine. And 2 different delays and a reverb, and it has 9 algorithms on each side. So 9 reverbs, total of, we'll say 18 delays, although it's not exactly the case because you have 3. Sorry, I'm trying to read small print in the semi-dark. You have 3 delays that are on the same on A and B, which instantly I said to myself, that is actually really cool because they are the more quote unquote normal delays. It's the digital delay, the analog delay, and the tape delay are mimicked on either side. So like if you're like, I really just want to have dual digital delays or dual analog or dual tape or whatever, you can do that because you're not limited it to only being like the quote unquote, I don't know, it's not just on the one. That's probably, honestly, that's probably my main complaint about the Chase Bliss Mood is because I wish that I could do the delay and the reverb at the same time, but you can't because they're on the same channel. Or the Chroma Console by Hologram, same thing. I want the space and I want the collage at the same time, but you can't because it's on the same, channel.
So what you're saying is that Mooer gave you something that you weren't getting from your regular haunts. It did. Yeah. I mean, that's what, when I first saw it, I was intrigued by it because of the fact that it combined everything. Because you got reverb, dual delay, and then a looper that also has, if I understand it from watching some of you play with it, but also looking at it, it's half speed in reverse as well as like the secondary foot switches. Yeah. Yeah. And to be fair, I didn't touch the looper. And you should definitely. I want a full review of that. So I will. So what I tend to do, Paul, you know this, but listeners may or may not, is there's a whole series on our channel, basically referenced as First Sounds, and that is literally Paul or I
plugging in a pedal for the first time and just going to town, seeing what we can discover. And usually it literally is the very first sounds that we're hearing as we're hitting record. Sometimes it's like on this Ocean Machine, I turned it on and I just wanted to just do some tactile things just to make sure. Or more, by the time this is released, the Keeley Octa Psi video will be out. That one I spent a minute with because there's a lot packed into a small box, and I didn't want to spend most of the video just fumbling around controls. I wanted it to be mostly sound, right? So on the Ocean Machine, it's just a lot of, I go through the 24 presets and just hear what they sound like, and then I go through the reverb section and then each delay section and just adjusting which algorithms we're hearing, which of the parameters, like what are those controls like, and then some of these secondary or quote unquote hidden parameters like shimmer. They're still diving in all in on this shimmer thing because it is available on every single algorithm, I think. Definitely every delay.
Crazy.
Pretty sure it's in every reverb, but it's dialable. So you can.
It's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. It's not the greatest shimmer because it's the same type of shimmer that they've had since the Shimver, but it, unlike the original Blue Sky, where you couldn't control how much shimmer is going on or like where it was or whatever, this one you can definitely pull it back and do it to taste.
So, okay, let's quickly segue though, because you mentioned it, and I want to make sure we cover a few. So, Mooer Ocean Machine 2, just real quick, thumbs up, thumbs down. Where are you at with it right now?
Right now, I've got 2 thumbs up because it is. There's so much you can do. You can do series and parallel. Like it lets you do the delays. Like if you think of the delays and the reverb as 3 different units, which they are, you can do any of those 3 in parallel. So you could do delay A on parallel plus delay. Sorry, you could do delay A and reverb into delay B. You could do delay A and B into reverb. You could do reverb into delay A and B. Like with parallel and series, you can do quick flips on the ping pongs.
That's awesome. That's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, and one of the cool things is it's a little bit tricky to get right. The switches are a little bit wide to do this quickly, but you can do a master tap for the whole pedal, and then you can do individual taps on delays A and B, all within the tap mode. So, pretty fun stuff. And of course, like some of the better loopers, you can put the looper where you want it. So you can put the looper at the end, you can put it at the beginning, you can put it in between the effects. So there's a lot of functionality. I've yet to do a deep dive. This was just the first sounds. Like as of the release of this episode, the only video is like a first sounds. It's 30 minutes long. It is I think it's the longest first sounds video we've done because it just has that much.
Yeah, there's a lot of sounds to find in there for your first exploration. So,
yeah.
Well, we'll definitely, anything we mention here, we're going to link to it too.
Yes. It beats out the first sounds video from the Keeley Octa Psi, which I know you're segueing to. It beats it out by 5 minutes. So, 35 minutes long on that Ocean Machine video. It's a discovery.
Yes, a lot to chew on there. I'm excited to hear more of it. I listened through like half of that this morning before we even talked because I was just, new video. And I was like, this thing sounds as cool as I hoped it would.
Yeah, very cool.
So let's segue into the Octa Psi. So I've got to spend a little bit of time with this one. You've spent more time with it. I mean, I'll just say my first impressions. I plugged it in like I told you I wanted to do with my SG just because I love making crunchy fuzz noises. Mm-hmm. Only got to play with that for like half an hour, but I was really, really stoked on a couple of things. And I caught this from your video when you first sent it to me. It's one of the more focused fuzzes when you dial it in.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like it's like washing out tattered edges the same way a lot of them do. And then there's so much it can do with the octaves.
Oh my goodness.
So I even from you gave me like the very quick, hey, this works this way, this works this way. I still feel like I'm like barely scratching the surface of understanding all it can do.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then what I did do for like 5 minutes, and then I completely forgot that I needed to leave, so that didn't get to finish this. is I plugged it in to a synthesizer, which more on that. But there's some cool stuff there.
Okay.
But
very cool.
I want to hear, you did the deeper dive, talk about this. It's a very cool pedal from Keeley. I'm very stoked about it as a new release.
Yeah. So Paul, you know me, fuzz is not my biggest thing. And so when I found out that's what this was, I was like, oh, okay, but I'll give it a shot. And I was honestly looking more at the pitch shifting side of it and getting super excited. And, but I also, hey, let's check out that fuzz because we can always grow. And I love it. I absolutely love this pedal. It can do so many fun things. And I think I was mentioning to you earlier, I really like it with the fuzz more than just the pitch by itself. I think they are made together and put together for a reason. They really work well. It just gives you that thick, woolly, focused, just gnarly fuzz tones. And there's so many different, there's 3 different fuzz options. And I believe it's a total of 24 different octave or pitch options you can add.
Yeah,
and
there is so many combinations. That is something that I was like, whoa, this is very flexible.
Yeah.
And it really warms my heart to hear that you are starting to warm up to fuzz, because I know on our earlier signal chain episode, we joked end of episode, Alan doesn't like it, I do. And I know when we first found out what this pedal was as a new Keeley pedal, you're like, oh, it's a fuzz. I didn't know it was a fuzz. And now I think Keeley might have made you like fuzz. Or at least fuzz curious now.
Fuzz curious, yes. And well, it's interesting because, we're a few episodes into this, and I think at the end of most of the episodes we've done thus far, you've always asked, what are you interested in trying? And more specifically in the vein of what it was we're talking about, especially in the signal chain series. And I think on the fuzz section, I had mentioned that I was really curious about the Earthquaker Devices Park Fuzz. And so since that release, what did I do? I think I bought that one. I bought a Park Fuzz because I really wanted to see what it was like. And so,
not even a trade. So proud of you.
Not even a trade.
You wanted to try new things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did that and it was like, yeah, okay, this is really cool. And I think I can, here's the thing, Paul. I think my early experiences of fuzz were Big Muff style. I didn't like it right away. And so then I just told myself, I don't like fuzz. And now knowing that there are so many more different tonal options out there, just like overdrive and just like distortion, that, okay, there's a whole segment of effects that I have not even looked at. I've completely just tossed to the wayside because of a singular bad experience 20 years ago. So.
No, I do think with fuzz, that's actually a fairly common experience, solely because a lot of the fuzzes that are kind of your classic ones, they don't necessarily have a ton of control and usually don't sound good without being maxed out. And if you're a person, and knowing the way you play music, you like to have shaping control because of what you're doing, especially because you're usually also using effects that are stacked together, and having something that sort of overloads the whole signal isn't necessarily what you're looking for.
Right.
And I feel it's exciting to hear you start the journey of exploring fuzzes, because there's I think there's a fuzz for everyone. This is my political platform. There's a fuzz for everyone. As we enter into the political season, this is my platform. Because I myself, so I've had a bunch of different ones. I think I have 4 or 5 or 6 around the house right now. Just,
oh yeah?
Just whether they're part of another pedal like the Black Hole Symmetry, or I do have a Big Muff Pi sitting somewhere. I don't know where that is. And I have a Nano Big Muff as well. And then I have on the way, which I'll talk about one I'm excited about. Not necessarily still a relatively new release, but not as new as the ones we talked about early here. The Pardner from Old Blood Noise.
Yeah.
which I'm really stoked about, both fuzz control and then their lasso, which is an effects loop on the fuzz, which is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Or send return, call it what it is, send return.
Effects loop.
Yeah. But it's within all of those, like, I feel like it's funny that I have so many of them because not everybody, I've had people ask me, how can you have that many different, you don't need that many different fuzzes, but they all have a little bit of something different they do.
Right.
And I think that is a departure from like your Dunlop fuzz faces of the past where it's like 2 knobs or 3 knobs at most.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, it's fuzz and that's what it is. And you can like dial in the tone, like either warm or hot. And that's like basically it, or warm or cold. There we go.
Well, yeah, because I referenced like in the fuzz episode, the one fuzz pedal that I have kept and like, although I don't use it often, is was built by our good friend Chris. Here he is making another appearance. At Like Jones Pedals, he had built. This is years before he started Like Jones, but he had built me the Live at Leeds fuzz from BYOC. It's a 2-knobber. It is just like level and like volume and gain, right? And then like a focus switch, whether it's open or closed. I just happen to like it enough in the open setting that I didn't need it to have anything else. But then I like some of these other ones, 2 knobs didn't do it for me because I just didn't like that specific circuit. I didn't like the diodes they were using or whatever.
Yeah, no, and it's cool. You're expanding your wings. That's what we're doing. You're ready to fly.
I'm no longer a fuzz fledgling. And actually, oh, dude, did I tell you? I have sitting here. It's been on my back burner for way too long. I need to do something with it. But I've got a couple of pedals from Wonder Effects. A buddy of mine sent them, who's related to the hilarious guy over at Wonder, sent them to me. But there's a Heck Boy. Have I told you about this thing?
No.
This is slightly off topic. I mean, not off topic because there is no topic, but it is a fuzz with virtually no control. You have like a volume control as a trim pot, and then you have an oscillation. Like it's a self-oscillating fuzz.
Whoa.
And it's in a finger enclosure, and all it has on the top are 2 foot switches. That's it. But it is like super weird, super wild. I think it's Nick over at Wonder. If I got your first name wrong, I'm so sorry, buddy. But I think he discontinued it, and I'm not entirely sure why. It's super fun and gnarly, and I've just got to make some stuff and send it to you because it is wild. It's the kind of like, I don't like fuzz that much, but I love what this thing can do because it's just super weird.
I think between the Octa Psi, which we'll link to that video too of First Sounds, and I think you like fuzz now. You're saying you don't like it still, but I think you do. I think you're starting to figure out what works for you, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But I think, okay, so the part of it though is my playing style has evolved so much from when I first tried things. Like when I was first exploring the world of fuzz many years ago, I was mostly doing, I guess, rhythm guitar. So it just got too thick too quick. And then like when I started doing a lot more lead work and textural work, that season of my life, I was still afraid of fuzz. So I didn't really do any of it at all. And then now, as I've started to really embrace on especially some of these videos like the Octa Psi, like I don't put anything else in the chain because this is a video about this pedal. So it really makes me focus on what I'm doing in the moment. And it's not about stringing along a bunch of different effects to make a total sound. It is like, let's discover, let's explore. And I think it's really something that has been missing in my previous fuzz exchanges. So I'm glad my wings are sprouting. I'm no longer a fledgling, but I still am a baby fuzz.
Still baby fuzz. I like that.
Still a baby fuzz.
One other new release I want to talk about, and then we can just get into some of the which we talked about beforehand. The things that we said we were going to try that we have, because there's a couple each of us have grabbed.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, because I did get to play with this one a bit more after you made a video, the Boss SDE3.
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't listened to other episodes, I am a big Boss fan. I've always been a big Boss fan. I never, even as I became aware of the boutique world, I've always stayed true to my Boss roots because I like the pedals and they build good pedals.
And you're a Boss.
Okay, I'll take that. And so when I saw they were releasing a dual digital delay pedal, which is right in Alan's in my wheelhouse, I was like, we got to try that one.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts? What do you think on it?
I think for what it is, it's extremely cool. And you know, I ran it through its paces, without like bringing MIDI into the equation. But I'm
curious about adding MIDI to it, honestly, myself.
Yeah. I didn't want to dive into that too much because I really just use MIDI as like tap tempo. That's it. So, I didn't want to try and explore something that I didn't already understand from a communication standpoint. But sonically, as this thing goes, it is really cool because it reminds me of, the delays themselves. My brain's just thinking about the modulation side of it, but the delays themselves can be very crisp, but they can also be very creamy and exactly what you would expect from like those 80s, 90s rack digital delays that Roland made. I think what's the SD3000. And the modulation in there can get really wicked and wild. It can get super warbly, super seasicky, which, to be honest, I was completely thrown by because I didn't expect a Boss, like a delay pedal like this, to go that gnarly. I think my experience with some of the other, like the DD20, which does a lot, and it can also get gnarly. I had been so focused on some of the more basic standard stuff that I never really dove into the wild modulation that Boss can do. But this one I did. And it was quite impressive how they do it. And especially on the stereo side of things, like as you're spreading the offset of the two delays, you can get so many cool sounds out of this thing. It's, it didn't, as a standalone dual delay, it was super awesome. I then made a whole series of like choosing a second, like a dual delay to go into my LVX. And for me, it didn't make that cut, but that's only because I was looking for something more specific that I was finding more in like the Keeley Halo or the Strymon Dig. But as a Boss-sized pedal in a single pedal format, it can do a ton and it sounds incredible.
Yeah, no, that I definitely agree. Sonically, I was really stoked on it. So when I play with a new thing, similarly to how you just like play with the one pedal into an amp, I generally try to not put it on my pedal board and get it lost in the sauce with everything else, but sort of just create a little workflow for myself, like a desktop setup. And so when I was playing with the SDE3, I set up a board that was just like an overdrive. I think I was using the barbershop from Fairfield.
Okay.
And then I had that going right into the SDE3. And then I had a little sneak peek of pedal that I tried since we talked about it, the Champion Leccy Skitzy, and then into my Stomp. And so I was having a lot of fun with the SDE3 because going into the Skitzy is like this wild reverb modulation machine, which I'll talk about in a second. But the dual delay offset knob, that was the one I was having the most fun with. Just like,
but you were running it in mono then, because
I was, because the Skitzy's mono, and then spreading it at the end with the Stomp stereo. So
yeah. No, that's fine. I was just
it's different how you were using it. Yeah,
totally different how I was using it. And so now my brain is focusing on that element as you're now talking, so I can picture what you're saying in a mono context. So
yes,
good, go.
So now I did run it in stereo too, because I pulled the Skitzy at one point just because I wanted to hear it, and it sounds awesome. I'd already heard it in stereo though, because I'd listened to you do it, so I was like, okay, I know what this sounds like. But I wanted to just try it in a setup where I was like, minimal. It's not my whole pedal board with everything else on it. And between the modulation and just the offset, I ended up just playing with it for like 45 minutes, just like noodling with just this pedal. And I had like one setting on the Skitzy just as like a washy verb after it. And it's a really fun pedal that with like, I guess it has like 7 controls technically, because you have dual on the level, feedback, and time, and then the offset.
Yeah.
Plus tap tempo when you hold it down. There's so many different little sounds to be found in a pedal that it's not a complicated pedal. And I was really, really impressed with, it's like a thoughtfully designed boss pedal. It's very thoughtfully designed.
Yes.
And just the way that I was able to dial in some of the modulation and then offset the 2 delays, I found it a blast. Like, it's not one that I'm like, I have to have this on my board forever because I have too many delays. But really thoroughly impressed with the capturing of that, as you mentioned earlier, capturing of that like rack mount delay sound in a box this size. A lot of bang for buck in that pedal. I was really stoked
because they have the bigger box, like the big box of theirs, which is like the Eddie Van Halen one.
It's called the 3000, right? That's the SDE 3000, I think. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
I'll Google while we're talking.
You Google. Now that's big. That is
SDE 3000. That's like the size of it's like the size of the DD 500.
I think it's bigger.
It might be bigger than it because it's 3. It might be bigger. It's roughly that format though. Yeah,
but bigger. And then like this is crammed. Like they totally skipped the 200 level and just crammed this down into a single format, which is incredible.
Impressive. It's impressive.
Yeah. So I have a question for you though. Regarding the SDE 3, how does it compare from your standpoint? Because you have is it a DD8 that you have?
I have a DD8, yeah.
DD8. How does it compare to the DD8? I'll just leave it at that. I won't hone it anymore.
So, I mean, this is distinctly a digital delay, whereas the DD8 has emulations of other styles. And can you get SDE out of the DD8? No, because it's not it doesn't do the same dual thing, obviously.
Okay.
Obviously.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever played a DD8, so I don't know if it can do that.
Well, but you've played a DD series, a single format one before.
A 5.
It's significantly different than the 5. I feel like the 7 was the big big leap for the boss series, in that the 7 started to like add things that the 6 and the 5 didn't have. Okay. And so the 8 has loop. It has a looper. Okay. Analog delay, standard, which is just standard digital delay, which that standard is the most similar sonically to the sound from the SDE3.
Okay.
But then it has a tape, a warm, a reverse. You can add RV, which adds the reverb from the RV6 to the DD8.
Oh.
Then you have shimmer, which you can add the shimmer from the RV6 to the DD8. Then there's a modulated delay, a warp delay, and then a glitch delay on the DD8.
Okay.
So they're kind of different boxes, but you can get the sonically they're similar. It's just the DD8 is a standard single delay, not a dual delay.
Okay. I guess that's great to know. My question was more leaning towards like if somebody really wanted the SDE3, could they find that in the DD8? And I think the answer is no.
No, yeah, they're pretty distinctly different products.
Cool.
And I do love the DD8 just because for me, it's always a return to home of like when I don't want to menu dive and I just want to play with a delay and just get it to do delay things. That's what I grab.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's your lock, stock, and barrel standard delay of, okay, it does all the things I expect, plus a few newer oddities like the adding the reverb to the trails or the glitches. But yeah, they're not, I would say they're fairly different.
Cool. Well, in terms of reverbs, can I transition us over into something that is being announced today?
Yes, do it.
Like as we speak, it's being announced, but no, that's not true because as we speak was 2 days anyway.
You're listening,
as you're listening, depending on when you're listening, it's either just about to be announced or has just been announced. But Walrus Audio is announcing what is coming next in their Mako series line. And I feel confident enough to tell you what I've seen and what I've heard. without giving away more than they may be ready to do so. So if anybody's on their Instagram, you have seen what's been teased out as a new Mako series that is gold. Gold in the original Mako series is what is it, Paul?
Gold?
Put you on the spot. Yeah, what's the gold
ACS
pedal?
one.
The ACS one. So there is a new version that is being announced today. And all I know about the ACS one, because I got to see like a picture of it, is that they have added a little screen on that thing. And presumably there's different algorithms. They've updated a whole lot, but there is a screen, which those pedals, I don't know how in the world they're going to cram a screen in there. I've seen it. It's small enough that it gives you it would give you the information that you need. And I'm thinking too, like when you're changing the dials on a pedal like the ACS one or any of the Mako series, I mean, you have secondary controls, you have your primary controls, and keeping tabs on what all of that does and just mentally is a little bit tricky. So I imagine having a screen on there that really lets you kind of see some of the primary things focused and kept there is going to be super cool. So I'm excited about it because the ACS one, to me, we talked about it a few episodes ago. I'm really stoked about the original one, and so I'm really intrigued about this. But what I can also say is that I was able to get an advanced beta version of the R1 updated algorithm, and it is super cool. They have all new algorithms, like it's basically all updated. So and I was able to use it in the original R1. I really liked it. I think I sent you some things with it, but I didn't drop any videos because obviously.
Yeah, because it's not out yet. And yeah, I was pretty stoked on that from hearing it. The R1 hardware, we don't know anything about that as of yet. As of
right now, as of this recording, no. And hopefully by the release, they've announced enough of it. And I don't want to presume too much. And I think it's okay saying that there's a beta version out there, even if they don't announce something new R1. I'm okay with, because there's betas of everything. I would assume, and this is just from a corporate standpoint, and by all means, Walrus does not feel corporate to me. They're not like a big, massive, not like Boss. And again, that's not a negative thing. Boss is just huge. For a small operation like that to be, I guess, profitable on a line like that, you want to use the same enclosure or as many of the same things as possible. So, if they're updating the enclosure of the ACS1, my assumption is that they're updating the enclosure on all of them.
Yeah, that stands to reason.
Yeah,
stands to reason. I'd be surprised if they weren't.
Logic speaking here, they've clearanced out their existing stock. You probably can still find it. It's really well priced. Will you be able to update the Mako series that's the version 1s, quote unquote, with version 2 software? Not sure how they'll be doing that in real world application, but my guess is that they're all going to be getting the hardware update, which is probably going to include processor update. Again, just an assumption, as well as algorithm updates on probably all of them.
Yeah, no, that I'm pretty stoked on that. I know you told me about this when you visited the folks at Walrus a while back now, and
yeah.
I think I've avoided or told you or like cut things out of episodes to say, hey, we can't talk about this yet, and now we get to talk about it because it's here. So I'm pretty stoked on it, and we're fans of what they do over at Walrus, so I'm excited to see them with a second version of these multi-effects pedals. I'm really stoked on that as a second generation.
We are fans. We've been fans for a long time. I didn't realize how obvious fandom there was until we were talking with Chris the other day for that interview. And I think it wasn't in the interview. It was like prior or post that he was like, "Well, I know what your episode's going to do. You're going to say hi to Walrus, and you're going to talk about the Maris LVX."
Yes.
I'm like, "Oh, yep."
Yeah.
Well, here we go.
No, I think we've been fans of them for a while. So yeah, they come up. We like their pedals. They make great pedals. And as a little teaser of the episode for next week, which is an interview with Chris, our good friend, they also make great artwork. So
yes,
that's a big reason that Walrus is stuck around.
They do.
So wait, let's say, speaking of great artwork, let's talk about, so we're past our Signal Chain series, and you and I have mentioned on some of those episodes, we sort of changed the format as we went, because we're this is all new to us. We're doing a podcast together. At earlier episodes, we kind of talked about stuff that we wanted to try or things that we hadn't tried yet. So I want to talk about, because I like the artwork of it a lot, and I really dig the pedal. One of the ones I mentioned, I think it was on our reverb episode, since it is primarily a reverb. Okay. And you had gotten it and sent it my way because you were like, yeah, it's not for me because it's mono. And I was like, well, I will check it out because I don't mind that. The Champion Leccy Skitzy that I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
So this is a relatively newer pedal from them as well. So it fits in with the theme of this episode. If there is a theme to this episode, just us talking pedals. But I will say, so I got it from you a couple weeks ago, and then I plugged it in, and at first blush, I was like, okay, this is really cool. It's kind of complicated. There's a lot going on under the hood.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if I need it. Took it off, let it sit for a minute. And then the day that I tried the SDE3, I was like, let me just pull this thing back out. And I hadn't yet done it because I had actually played it into the orange amp I have when I first was messing with the Skitzy. So fully mono signal across the board. So I ran this and spread it from mono to stereo with my stomp at the end of the chain.
Yeah.
And doing that, I was like, okay, wait, I might love this pedal. So for those who haven't spent any time with this, Skitzy's it's like a dual reverb, but not in your traditional sense, in that there's two verbs. There is a trem verb, and then there is a sway verb. And trem verb is a reverb that has tremolo applied, which is not surprising. And then sway verb is a pitch modulated reverb. You then have so much control over this. You can control whether you have tape and LFO, LFO only, no tape, no FLO on the reverbs. You can control hangover, which is your delay time and tape range. Mm-hmm. You have feedbacks with a control called backwash. You can turn the trem as phase canceling trem, standard trem, or no trem. And then you can voice the sway verb different ways. There's just so many different controls. And I have started to really dial in some really neat things with it. And I'm actually gonna make a first sounds video with it that
yes,
probably
please do.
Yeah. I similarly to when you were saying earlier about not wanting to just have it be figuring out what things are, I've been trying to learn each knob, so when I make this video it's more playing and less me like, wait, what's this one do? And looking at the manual.
Yeah. Well, what's really cool about it is it's basically like it shares DNA from the Woozy and the Skitter, which is kind of where the name came from, Skitzy.
And also...
and there's more.
The Dunch, their drive.
Is there some stuff in the... See, I didn't mess with it that much, and I think it's when I got the Skitzy, I got the Skitzy and the Woozy at the same time via a trade, and it was... that was in that season I had like 18 things on my desk to mess with, and I got really overwhelmed, and when I saw the black artwork,
you're
I'm like,
yeah, Paul, you just figured this out.
Paul, this is yours.
Yes. No, the Dunch, it's not necessarily incorporated. It's more of, and I was actually reading either on their post or something, basically from building the Dunch, learn some stuff about how to gain stage this type of pedal with like the dual reverbs.
Got it.
And you can like saturate your signal by turning up certain knobs. And cool. It's very cool. That's especially if you're using when I was messing with it, like the Barbershop from Fairfield, which is like a fairly light gain drive, very dynamic. Yeah. Then like driving the back end of your signal with like turning up. I might honestly just set up that same little board and like make a video with the champion Leccy, but like showing its interaction with some of the other stuff, because it's really cool. The Skitzy's really cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I'm super excited to see what you do with it, because it's definitely something that like it overwhelmed me quickly. And I know like this is like it's a Paul Brain thing. It's definitely a Paul Brain thing.
Yeah, once I really dug into it, I understood why you sent it to me, because I was like, this is a really cool thing. So you have one you want to talk about, because it was actually a more recent episode, which was AmpSim, and I actually think I told you should try it.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So, yeah. So the one that, it's the only one that you suggested I tried, but the UA Ruby. It's funny because I got, I also got, I think I told you this too, but I also got a Max. It was a fantastic trade that I got, both the Ruby
which you mentioned
and the
in an
Max.
early episode.
Yeah, I did, which we can talk about that later. But the Ruby, it is incredible. I'm really impressed with how authentic the emulation of a Vox AC30 is in this thing, and just some of the controls. Like there's like 6 different speaker versions, 2 each of like a silver, blue, like a silver back, a blue back, and a green back. All those Celestians, right? Super cool. You've got your normal channel, your brilliant channel, and then your vibrato channel that you can actually you can on off with one of the foot switches. Like you can turn the vibrato on and off that way, and not have it's not like you're just plugged into the vibrato channel. You can actually have it on off with this pedal, which is really cool. So sonically, really fantastic. I do wish it was either an interface with the computer or there was a headphone out. But I'm not complaining about the sound at all.
I know when I talked about the Dream, I do wish it had a headphone out. I don't know why this seems like such a strange overlooked feature for a pedal of its nature.
Yeah. I also have another complaint I want to ask you about, because maybe it's just me, but you go ahead.
Yeah, and then I do wish. Now, I generally record mine DI, and I get pretty good. You've heard my guitar sounds; I get pretty good sounds out of DI. I do wish it was some sort of interface. Like interface and headphone jack are 2 things about the Stomp that I love when I'm using that as my amp sim.
Yeah.
But what is your complaint? I want to hear.
So I'm not generally a fan of using apps to control things, but I decided to give it a shot. And interestingly enough, I updated the firmware on both the pedals, and then the app started crashing every time I used it. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll just use the UA app on my computer that I use to update the firmware, and then I'll make those adjustments. And I can't do it. Am I missing something, or can you not control the pedal when it's connected, like USB to the computer direct? I can update firmware, but you can't change the controls, right?
No, so the app interface, I actually forgot it even existed, and I just looked to see. I do still have it on my phone. It crashes all the time. I don't know what's wrong with that app. If Universal Audio, if you're listening, please fix your app, because it's a neat idea.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's a you problem.
Okay.
It's a strange interface with both the computer app and the phone app. I just do things on it, and I save presets on it. So
sure. And I think on the Ruby, it's fine. Like I think I can get to everything. The Max is different, as far as I know. And granted, I haven't read the manuals on either of these things.
No, you're right. There are some things you can do in the app. I've never owned. I've played with them, but I've never owned any of their any of their effects boxes, not amp sim boxes.
Sure.
And I know there's especially like the Golden. And I forget what their the delay. Starlight, is it the Starlight?
Starlight is the delay, yeah.
Because Scott had both of those, and there's stuff that the app you can do more with the app and unlock certain features.
Okay.
So it is kind of a pain that the app crashes all the time.
Yeah.
So no, that is not a you
that's
problem.
My other complaint. Okay.
But I am glad to hear you like the Ruby. I thought, when we were talking to amps, and I know you like. I've wanted you to try it ever since I liked the Dream. They're sonically really, really close to the amps they're emulating.
Well, and I kind of expect that from Universal Audio. with just how big they are in the pro audio world. But yeah. And I am intrigued by the smaller boxes, but they're not stereo. So
yeah, you got to stick with your stereo. So you can also, I know the Dream can do this. You can do like the 4 cable amp thing with the Ruby.
Yes, you can. You can.
So yeah, that's a cool feature too.
Yeah.
All right. So there's so much more we could talk about, but we should wrap up because we got a lot. We got some more fun stuff coming in the next week too.
We do. And what's hilarious to me, Paul, is like I'm looking at our time clock right now, and it's like we were saying, hey, let's bang out like a short one. And
I know. So let's do our posts of the week. I got one from Facebook instead of Reddit since my last few were from Reddit. This one is from Pedalboards of Doom, a great Facebook group. If you're not part of it, please join for talk about gear, memes, goofs, etc.
Yeah.
So this post, what is a pedal that you thought was a gimmick or just generally ridiculous, ended up absolutely loving and or can't live without?
Oh my goodness. That was a great question. That was, I saw that and was like, oh, that's a good one. I should look at it. Okay. So do you want to know what came to my mind? And, instantly came to my mind when that one came out is when that question popped up, the hologram microcosm. If I'm that's what popped in my head, because it on paper looks like it would just be any other kind of glitchy delay box, but I like it so much. We talked about this, Paul, earlier, like about doing an episode of a pedal that like of what pedals that we will never get rid of. And I feel pretty confident to say that the microcosm is that for me. And strangely enough, I've done very little videos on it.
And yeah, that is actually kind of funny. It's one that you have loved a lot, but I think that's a good answer too. And it's funny that's your answer because mine was going to be the other hologram piece, the Chroma console, which I know on an episode we talked about how you brought it to me and I was like, I don't really need this. And now it's become a part of my tone shaping. And I think I'll just talk a little bit about why, because I think I've alluded to it on a few episodes.
Yeah, please.
So the Chroma console is one that I still sort of have a relationship with in that you mentioned it earlier in this episode too. I do wish that like you could pull effects out and like use like your diffusion effects, which are like your time-based reverbs and delays, and like have them be stacked separately. But what I love about the pedal, so it's so flexible. You have character, movement, diffusion, texture, which are kind of drive and compression type for character. Movement is modulation, diffusion is reverb delay, and then texture is like your tape and filter type effects. And when I first heard it, before I had it in my hands, when you brought it over the one afternoon, I was like, okay, that's just like it's just a multi-effects. It's like holograms doing a multi-effects pedal. Okay, cool, whatever. And I'd heard a few demos. I was like, yeah, it sounds cool. And even still to this day, one of my critiques of it is the individual effects, like they're not like mind-blowing, but it's the sum of the parts of this thing where you can create a signal chain that maybe is different than your pedal board, or it fills in when you need something. And for me, honestly, most of the use case, I know we talked about doing an episode about this, is I use it very, very often with synthesizers for sound design for film stuff. And that is where this thing becomes like an absolute beast, because a lot of synthesizers have like delays and reverbs and filters, obviously, as part of the workflow.
Yeah.
But being able to flesh it out with some of the like, and this is where it's like, oh, these are simple effects. Like your delay here is not one where you're dialing in like exact tap divisions and stuff. But if I'm looking to design a sound and I just want to add some space to it, the Chroma console is absolutely perfect for that. Yeah. And it completely changed my opinion on it and I think actually the afternoon you brought it over, we plugged it into my Hydra synth. And I remember just being like, oh, wow. Okay. And then like throwing on like the textures, like the tape cassette sound, and being like, okay, well, let me just mess with this. And then you never got it back.
Nope. That's right. I had to get another one.
So I was like, all right, this is mine now. So yeah, that's my answer. I think it's funny we had both hologram like pedals as our answer there.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the microcosm, I just, it is the most organic pedal that I've ever played. And what I mean by that is I generally only use it on one setting, and it's the Mosaic setting, in reverse with some nice thick reverb and a teensy amount of modulation. But as I'm playing, I never know what's going to be coming back to me. And so it feels like I'm actually playing along with something that is ever evolving and changing. And I love it for that reason.
Yeah, I do think at some point in time, I'm going to give the microcosm another fair shake, like we talked about on our Odd Ducks episode. But I have always been impressed with the sort of generative stuff you've made with it.
Yeah.
Because in many ways you use it like a modular synthesizer for a guitar, which is very cool.
I do. Well, I have, I love it so much that I traded off my OG. Actually, that's what I got. I traded my OG for the Ruby and the Max. And I did that because they just released the limited, like, all cream glitch edition. And I am like, I don't know if I'm going to let you even touch this one because it's that precious to me.
Fine.
And
that's fine. I'll get a black one at some point.
You'll get a black one. Right.
Yeah. At
Just
some
like
point
your soul.
it'll happen. Yes. They'll also, whenever they put out a black chroma console, I guess that'll be when I switch my chroma console to black. So
yeah, that is what you texted me. Like, are they going to do a black chroma? I'm like, probably.
Yeah.
Knowing those guys.
So, but, well, anyhow, so that's our answer. Both hologram pedals are our answer to things we thought were gimmicks, and then we ended up not being able to live without for different reasons. So that's
good job, folks over at Hologram, for doing that. Both incredible.
You've impressed us both with different things. So, but well, anyhow, so next week we have an interview with our friend Chris from Like Jones Pedals, and also in that episode you'll hear some other things that Chris is up to. And as always, keep collaborating. We look forward to hearing more from you all. If you enjoyed last week's episode, which was a listener suggestion, feel free to send your listener suggestions to us. We're happy to keep creating things that you all are interested in hearing.
Absolutely. Until next time. Peace.
Bye.